Tonight on Bridge City News, an accident on Highway 4 involving a stolen truck leads to 5 people being sent to hospital, including a couple from the Yukon. More than 40 people have now died from the devastating wildfires in California. And it is plebiscite day in the Stampede City as Calgarians go to the polls to vote on whether or not the city should host the 2026 Winter Games. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. A couple from the Yukon who were traveling to the United States in a truck were hit by a stolen truck yesterday. Police say the accident occurred around 8 a.m. along Highway 4. The couple were in their 70s. The man was taken to a Calgary hospital with serious injuries. His female occupant was taken to the Chinook Regional Hospital here in Lethbridge. A female occupant in her 20s in the stolen truck was flown via Stars Air ambulance to Calgary. The remaining occupants were taken to Chinook Hospital with minor injuries. Police are still investigating the crash. If you have any information about the accident, contact Crime Stoppers right away at 1-800-222-8477. Lethbridge Police and Fire Department are continuing their investigation into a sudden death following a weekend apartment fire. Around 4:20 a.m. on Saturday, EMS were called to a fire at a landmark building along 500 block of 6th Street South. 3 stations and 22 firefighters battled the blaze. The body of a 39-year-old male was located inside of a unit. He was transported to the medical examiner's office in Calgary for an autopsy today. Police say there was no evidence of foul play. The Northern California wildfire has killed at least 42 people, making it the deadliest in the state's history.
We're currently showing at 117,000 acres, 30% contained. Total personnel assigned to the fire is 5,139. Total citizens evacuated, 52,000, and we're still showing 1,385 people that are in shelters. Damaged, 36 single-family residents. Destroyed, 6,453. Multiple residents. Those are residents with multiple residents in one building. 11 damaged, 74 destroyed. So our total number of damaged structures as of right now is 92. Our total number of destroyed structures as of right now is 7,177.
A California fire chief says fires seem to get worse in his state each and every year. Scott Jalbert says safety is their top concern, but they must fight fires aggressively. He spoke as the fires continue to rage up and down the state.
I've been doing this job for 31 years, and probably in the last 5, maybe 7 years, every year seems to get worse. A lot of that has to do with the recent drought and the drought that we're still going through. And with that, that drought killed a lot of vegetation. And so that dead vegetation is prone to burning, obviously. You add low humidities and strong winds, and a fire that would normally burn somewhat mundane now is burning in extremely. You have to attack these fires aggressively, but safety is our number one concern. Our firefighters, no matter what agency you work for, are very well trained. We can recognize the conditions and know when to directly engage a fire and when to back off. We always try the approach of keeping the small fires small, but in this case here, when you arrive and the fire's already 100 acres and running, when you have 70-mile-per-hour winds and 300-foot flame lengths, that's something you don't get in front of. So you take the defensive approach at that point.
This is Philanthropy Week, and celebrations are taking place all throughout the city. National Philanthropy Day is an initiative of AFP International, and Canada was the first to recognize it formally as an annual celebration. Today, a flag-raising ceremony took place at Lethbridge City Hall, celebrating philanthropists and their important contributions to our community. Close to 40 local nonprofit groups also gathered at City Hall to give thanks for the support they've received here in southwestern Alberta. Joanne Mitchell, who's the president of the Association of Fundraising Professionals, says big money goes to various charities across the country.
It's critical. There's $14.3 billion of resources that go into charities across Canada. Those are the charities that are actually alleviating poverty, advancing education, advancing faith, and really meeting many of the community needs that need to be met.
These aren't acts of charity, these are acts of human dignity, respect for human dignity. So tremendous to have these wonderful organizations in our city reaching out to others in a selfless way, not knowing these people. Many of the people who receive the benefit of their generosity, they don't know them. And it's tremendous to see people helping in a way and not asking for anything back in return.
7 local leaders of philanthropy will be honored at a luncheon this Thursday, 11:30 a.m. at the Lethbridge Lodge. The provincial government has announced an increase to solar power rebates. Solar energy rebates will be increasing by 15% as part of the program run by Energy Efficiency Alberta. Since 2017, more than 950 solar installations have been completed in Alberta, with industry recently seeing an increase of 500%. The price of solar power equipment and installation is becoming more affordable for Albertans, which now makes it a viable option.
Back in the day, I mean, you could buy a 100-watt solar panel for about $1,200. And now, you know, the equivalent solar panel would be worth about $125. So that's kind of where manufacturing is, you know, robotics and whatnot have taken the industry and improved manufacturing. So.
With the increase, residents and businesses will see a rebate increase from 75 to 90 cents per watt, and installation can see a rebate of up to 35% of the cost. The City of Lethbridge is celebrating the 10th anniversary of historic building preservations. 27 Lethbridge properties have been designated as municipal historic resources since Lethbridge's Heritage Management Plan began a decade ago. Jean Johnstone of the Historic Places Advisory Committee says historical preservation is very important for our region.
When we started 10 years ago, we didn't have anything. We had done a survey of buildings, and the survey in the downtown was interesting because in 1980 there was a survey of just the downtown, and when we started to do it again in 2003, 4, 5, we finished it, we had lost more than 360 buildings. And so we have lost a tremendous amount. Not all of them were good, but we have lost a lot of history.
Johnstone says people who have historically designated properties can apply for funding for restoration through the Alberta Historical Resources Foundation. Operation Christmas Child is an initiative launched by Samaritan's Purse to help provide for needy children around the world. Esther Vonkeman Rosette is a volunteer with Operation Christmas Child. Esther stopped by our studio recently to offer an example of how God is blessing this ministry, especially in countries like Senegal.
When I got into that room, I looked at the carton of boxes that we had stacked up, and I looked at the children, and there wasn't enough boxes. There was too many children in that room. There was no way there was going to be enough. Esther had pulled a box out of the carton and said, "Lord, bless this box," and I took it, and I said, "Lord God, please let there be enough." I didn't look at the children behind me. I just gave one to each one, blessed each child individually, and then kept going down the line. As I pulled out the last box, the very last box, I turned around and it was the 15-year-old mother.
Wow.
She got the very last box that was in that room. There was no children left, so God performed a miracle.
See what the needs are for kids right now when you watch the entire interview with Esther Vonkeman Rosette with Operation Christmas Child. That's coming up later in our show. Today is Plebiscite Day in Calgary as Calgarians vote on whether or not the city should host the 2026 Winter Olympics and Paralympics. So far, it's too close to call. The yes side says it is a great investment for the city. It will also help Calgary get the infrastructure the city needs and wants, including a new arena. The no side, however, said Calgary 2026 is not the right project for the city. And Olympics won't solve the city's biggest problems, including a 27% vacancy rate downtown. The no side also says Calgary is taking all of the risk and the city cannot afford cost overruns. The latest figures have the Winter Games costing just over $5 billion. The federal government has committed $1.45 billion and the province would kick in with another $700 million. The city's share would be around $390 million. Calgary Tory MP Michelle Rempel is sponsoring an online petition to scrap Bill C-71. It is Ottawa's controversial new gun control bill, which Rempel says directly infringes on the rights of responsible gun owners. The petition will be sent to Minister of Border Security and Organized Crime Reduction. Rempel says the government is focusing its efforts on law-abiding firearm owners while ignoring data on gun-related crimes tied in with gang activity and illegal weapons smuggling. She says Bill C-71 does nothing to address the problems related to gun crime. Signatures to the online petition are being gathered until February 8th of 2019. So far, just over 28,000 Canadians have signed the petition. A link to the petition can be found on our Facebook page or on our website, bridgecitynews.ca. The federal government is looking over a concept of having a national pharmacare program. Yannick Labrie is a health consultant and senior fellow with the Fraser Institute. I asked Yannick recently if it was necessary and where Alberta ranks when it comes to coverage for those who are most vulnerable, including seniors.
I'd say Alberta is in the middle of the pack. Seniors are covered, obviously, people of low income, people with some disabilities as well. So we tend to think that people who are handicapped or they have some rare diseases like multiple sclerosis, stuff like that. They are not covered. In Alberta, they are.
Watch the full interview with Monsieur Labrie as he also discusses which medications are not covered by the government. That's coming up after business news. Fish oil, vitamin D, and new cholesterol guidelines. Recent news from the American Heart Association reveals a lot about what works and what does not work in preventing heart attacks.
We got a very good, very big study that says neither vitamin D nor fish oil reduce the risk of cancer or heart disease. The good news is both the fish oil and the vitamin D were safe. There was no harm, but there was also no benefit. And so, our advice to people would be not to routinely take either unless there's a very good other reason to take these supplements.
For the first time, we can really give doctors and their patients an expansive list of conditions to help make the idea of cardiac risk come alive.
Since the 2013 guidelines were published, we have 2 new drugs that are now available to doctors and patients who may need further reduction of cholesterol. We have new ideas about the assessment of risk and the inclusion of coronary artery calcium in certain patients. So I think all in all, these guidelines are taking us to the next level.
Broadcaster CNN is suing U.S. President Donald Trump and his administration, demanding that correspondent Jim Acosta's press credentials to cover the White House be returned. The administration revoked them last week following an exchange between the president and Acosta, where Acosta refused to give up the microphone during a Q&A with Trump. The lawsuit was filed today in Washington, D.C. Acosta and CNN say revoking his credentials violates freedom of the press. Several journalists and organizations have demanded Acosta's access be reinstated. The White House said it would vigorously defend against the lawsuit, calling it more grandstanding by CNN. Think about what it would be like to get together with a friend you haven't seen in 70 years. That's exactly what happened to 2 Holocaust survivors who got together recently, and this is their story.
This is Herbert and Miriam's first meeting in 70 years. Right now, Mimi, as she's tenderly called by her close ones, is reminding her childhood friend where they used to live, play and study in the city of Chernivtsi.
This is the building which belonged to Herbert's grandfather. They lived, I think, on the 3rd floor.
The trouble-free life of Jewish children changed the moment when Romanian occupation authorities took over the city. They made all the Jews move to a ghetto. Herbert's and Mimi's families weren't an exception.
The buildings with a lot of people, no beds, nothing to eat, the smell was not very okay. My first impression had been the commandatur from the Nazis, from the German, such big persons, guys, with dogs. And the dogs had been so big, and I have been a small child, have been very afraid from the dogs. They tried to attack me.
From that ghetto, innocent people were sent to Transnistria, a fictitious region of Romania where 200,000 Jews found their death during the war. Herbert's and Miriam's families managed to escape. But when the war was over, they ended up in different countries. During the first years after the war, Miriam lived in Romania. Herbert moved to Germany.
What do you feel and what was your feel yesterday when you see each other?
Look, we were like brother and sister.
To me, had been if there's no, where have been the years?
Yeah.
The years have not been existing.
This meeting was initiated by the German-Ukrainian project We Learn to Remember. The fruit of the project have been recently presented in Chernivtsi.
Ist ein transnationales Erinnerungsprojekt für und an die Opfer der Shoah in der Ukraine, das jetzt inzwischen in bis zu 10 Städten aktiv ist.
German diplomats also marked the importance of this project, since all the materials are beneficial not only for Ukraine, but for Germany as well.
This first part of the Holocaust, the one that happened in Ukraine, does not get the attention that it deserves. So bringing this aspect of the Holocaust to the German public will also be an important task. Thanks to the initiative, thanks to the energy of the Jewish community in Düsseldorf, that we have here an extremely valuable pedagogical project that brings the aspects of the Holocaust to the young generation.
The presentation of a comic book about Herbert and Mimi's lives and the Holocaust that took place in the region was held in Chernivtsi. The comic book is not about caricatures or funny pictures. It's the book about the genocide of Jews in the form of a graphic novel.
Stan Lee, the creative mind who revolutionized the comic book industry and helped Hollywood make billions of dollars, died yesterday at the age of 95. We have more now in this report.
The comic book genius and Spider-Man creator Stan Lee died Monday. He was 95. Lee revolutionized comic books, introducing superheroes with human frailties. Spider-Man was insecure. The Fantastic Four squabbled. The Incredible Hulk was saddled with self-loathing.
My publisher said, Stan, you've lost it. He said, first of all, nobody likes spiders. You can't call a hero Spider-Man. Secondly, a teenager can't be a hero. He can only be a sidekick. And lastly, he said, you say he's got all kind of problems. Don't you understand, Stan? He's a hero. Heroes don't have problems.
A top writer and later publisher at Marvel Comics, Lee was widely considered the architect of the contemporary comic book.
I think I'm most grateful for the fact that I've been able to write these stories and that people seem to have enjoyed them. That's very lucky for me.
He offered younger readers costumes and action while insisting on sophisticated plots, high-level dialogue, satire, and even philosophy. Many of his creations, including X-Men, went on to become blockbuster film stars.
Oh, I don't think I'm responsible for all this, but it's nice to be a part of it, I'll tell you that. And it's nice to be part of something that's been growing incrementally every year.
More recently, Lee helped make the movies Avengers, Infinity War, and Black Panther possible. He had a long list of cameo appearances in Marvel films and TV projects. Stan Lee is survived by his daughter and younger brother. Warren Levinson, Associated Press.
A windy but warmer day in our city. Will the mild temperatures continue? I'll have a look at the weather picture in just a moment. A mixture of sun and cloud today with lots of wind. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low near +2. Tomorrow, mainly sunny with a high near 9. Thursday, the mercury drops slightly to 5 degrees. Friday, the snow returns with a high of only -1. Saturday, clearing with the temperature dropping to -2. Warming up considerably on Sunday, sunshine and a high near 10 degrees is expected. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 5 degrees and an average low of -7. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1990 at 20 degrees, and the record low was -34 in 1955. Sunrise was at 7:40, sunset at 4:52. Let's have a look at the national forecast for tomorrow. A chance of showers and a high of 12 is on tap for Vancouver. Periods of rain and 13 is expected for Victoria. Calgary, which was the national hotspot today at 15, tomorrow mainly sunny and a high of 10. Edmonton will be mainly cloudy and 6 on Wednesday. Lots of sunshine expected in Regina tomorrow with a high near 5. Saskatoon will also be sunny and a high of 5. Clearing in Winnipeg tomorrow with a high of only 0. 0 but a chance of flurries in Toronto tomorrow. Ottawa will be mainly sunny and -5. Montreal will be partly cloudy and -6. Over the Maritimes, a good chance of flurries and -8 is expected in Fredericton, New Brunswick tomorrow. Halifax, Nova Scotia had a wind warning today. Tomorrow, flurries and a high of -1. Charlottetown, PEI also had strong winds today. Tomorrow, flurries and -4. In St. John's, Newfoundland, they too had strong winds today. Tomorrow, rain and a high of 10 degrees is expected. Pipeline operator TransCanada says anticipated growth in earnings is expected to support a dividend increase through the year 2021. The Calgary-based company says it expects to raise its dividend at an average annual rate of 8 to 10% through that period. TransCanada has increased its dividend on common shares in each of the last 18 years. It says it expects earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation to grow to about $10 billion in 2021. That is a 35% increase from 2017. The union representing 320 workers at the Globe and Mail newspaper say they could strike by midnight Wednesday. Unifor says workers gave the union a 94% strike mandate 2 weeks ago. It says they're seeking pension protection and an end to what Unifor says is a pay gap between male and female employees. Negotiations have been going on for 6 months, but Unifor says talks will not have moved forward for the past couple of months. For kids growing up in today's cashless society, the piggy bank is going virtual. A wave of digital pocket money apps that come with prepaid cards are new tools for financial education as money goes digital.
£8 out of from your card to a surprise transfer. And then that shows you all your transactions. And you can go spending. And there's been no spending. I log in with my parent account and top up every so often. Ailish has her own login as an app, and she can check her balance and she can check her savings goal, which she can change herself. And then she knows what she can spend on sweets or toys or donations.
Yeah. And how would you like to pay for it?
Yeah, see if you can tap it.
So she was
Today, cash actually for kids is an abstraction. Unless parents actually put on the table the cash when they talk about them doing, let's say, a chore at home, cash will remain forever an abstraction. For them, what is real today is the phone, is the app, and when they see that actually they have done a chore at home and they see the number going up, that's for them reality.
What's really important is them understanding where the money that they're spending has come from, and that when they are spending, that money is leaving their account. They no longer have it in their cash pot or bank account.
Daddy, how much is this?
Consumer Safety in the United States has come up with its list of worst toys for the Christmas season. Topping the list is a Black Panther slash claw and a plastic Power Ranger sword. The group World Against Toys Causing Harm unveiled its list today at a Boston Children's Hospital. A Nerf gun, a Cabbage Patch Kids doll, and a xylophone for infants also made the list. Demand for healthy natural food is extending from humans to pets. Pet food chain Petco says it will stop selling dog and cat food and treats with artificial colors, flavors, and preservatives by May. The changes will take place online and at its nearly 1,500 stores. Petco's move is the first of its kind among major pet stores and comes at a time when sales of natural pet foods are steadily rising. Sensing the growing trend, two big food companies, General Mills and J.M. Smucker Company, spent billions to acquire the natural pet food brands Blue Buffalo and Nutrish earlier this year. Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, the wildfires in Northern California have now claimed 42 lives, having caused the evacuation of 52,000 people and destroyed more than 6,500 structures. Firefighters say rain is desperately needed. So far, only 30% of the blazes have been contained. When you see news happening, drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. And if you missed any of today's top stories, check out our full newscast online at bridgecitynews.ca. Operation Christmas Child is well underway. Up next, I chat with a volunteer who explains what gifts kids need the most in impoverished countries around the world. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Come out and enjoy the Taste of Ethiopia fundraising event taking place Friday, November 16th at the Central Church of Christ, featuring authentic Ethiopian cuisine and live music by local artist Barb Marchuk. Proceeds will benefit Galata Ministries, which works to aid the people of South Omo, Ethiopia. The Downtown BRZ is looking for volunteers to assist with the 18th annual Bright Lights Festival being held on Friday, November 16th. Volunteers are needed to help with a variety of activities including visits with Santa, hay rides, snowboard demonstrations, food prep, and more. For information, call Shiva at 403-327-9002 or visit downtownlethbridge.com. The 4th annual Pig Roast fundraiser in support of the construction of a medical clinic in Uganda is taking place Saturday, November 17th at the Miss City Church, with doors opening at 5 p.m., supper and program beginning at 5:30. Tickets are $15 and can be reserved by calling Anne at the Bridges of Hope office at 403-380-3844. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
You've most likely heard about Operation Christmas Child, also known as the Shoebox Campaign, which is a project of the international relief organization Samaritan's Purse. It has become the world's largest children's Christmas project. Joining me now in studio is Esther Vonkeman Rosette. She's a volunteer with Operation Christmas Child. Welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you for having me.
Now, for our viewers who may be a little unfamiliar with what it is, what exactly is Operation Christmas Child all about?
Operation Christmas Child is a program from Samaritan's Purse. It's a chance to fill shoeboxes and send them overseas to needy children. It's a chance to demonstrate tangibly God's love to these children. Quite often, this is the only gift children receive, not only this year, but in their entire lives.
Now, how many countries are we talking about that a lot of these shoeboxes go to? I want to talk about the kids' lives that are really touched.
So this year, the plan is to send them to 114 countries.
Wow.
So it's been quite widespread for sure. The children are touched everywhere. So when I went to Senegal in 2016, the impact that these boxes had was enormous. The children, like I said, don't usually receive a gift. They didn't even know what to do. So a lot of children, when they opened up their boxes, they just kind of stared at it. They didn't even know. They had never received anything. Wow. So to show them that love was just so powerful. They cherished every single thing in that box. I remember helping a little girl open up her yo-yo packaging, and I went to take the packaging back with me to throw in the garbage, and she grabbed it and she held it so close to her. Even what we would call trash, she cherished because that was hers and it was given to her.
Tell me about some of the poverty you saw when you were down in Senegal.
So one of the things that really blew my mind was just the garbage everywhere when I was there. There was no really limited places to throw your garbage, and it was dry. It was before the rainy season, so things hadn't been growing yet. They were just starting to seed their crops. That was one of the most powerful things. It was just dry and seemed desolate.
So how does Operation Christmas Child, Esther, decide which box goes to which child? And we have one of the boxes right here.
So Samaritan's Purse relies quite heavily on the volunteers that are in those countries that are receiving the boxes. If it weren't for them, the boxes wouldn't get there. So those locals, they actually choose which families and which children will most benefit from receiving those boxes. So,
and here's one of the boxes here. We're cracking it open for our viewers at home. And what sorts of things do we actually put into these wonderful boxes here? Toys,
so,
lots of good toys?
Toys for sure are great. Some things to consider putting in, which are really powerful too, are hygienic supplies. So like soap and a toothbrush, a face cloth. Put in some school supplies as well. I've heard stories of children that they have to be able to purchase their own school supplies to go to school, and they can't afford it. So now that they have pencils and paper, they can actually go to school. And then consider putting in a wow item, something that will really kind of just really delight them. So there's a bunch of different types of wow items.
How about a slinky?
You could do a slinky for sure.
Because it's shiny, right? It's got a little bit of the bling and it's fun.
Kids love soccer balls. Anything you can deflate and put a pump in with it, they love that so much. Stuffed animals, dolls, you can put clothes in, you could put jewelry. There's many things you can do for sure.
But a girl in Senegal, would she actually appreciate a Barbie?
Yeah, they would. They would play with it. They have nothing. So anything that they can receive, they loved it. Yeah, they would open up the boxes, go through it. The sound in the room when they opened up their boxes was just, it was really heartwarming for sure.
Well, I can imagine. Now, what sorts of items should we never put into one of these boxes?
For sure. So if you go on to SamaritansPurse.ca, there is a list of items you can and shouldn't put in, but some of the main things that we would like to not have put in the boxes include liquids, anything breakable, so toothpaste, shampoo unfortunately can't go in. We ask that you don't put anything war-related or anything scary, anything that could be used for gambling, so playing cards with the faces on them, and dice, we ask that you don't put those in the boxes.
Now, I understand, Esther, that you have to pick an age category as well when you determine what kind of a box you're putting together. Tell me a bit about that.
So you pick which gender you'd like, a boy or a girl, and then there's 3 age categories. There's 2 to 4, 5 to 9, and then 10 to 14.
Okay. What seems to be the most popular? Do people like giving to the little kids? Or?
Little kids, we're finding that the least popular right now is boys 10 to 14. People are a little strapped with what to put in, but consider putting in a tool. Like I put in my boxes, I put in hammers and nails and measuring tapes. These are things that can help them develop a career and help them earn money later on. It can really set them ahead.
How about some collector's Hot Wheels, some little cars?
They love cars as well.
They would love that as well?
Yep.
Well, that's pretty cool too. Now, is it okay to include maybe pictures of yourself and your family and maybe even a note saying how much we love and appreciate you, this is why we're doing this, showing God's love to the kids?
For sure. When I was in Senegal, the local leader there actually said that was the most cherished item that children received out of the box. To see a picture of the people that packed it with love and care, and then to see the letter. They may not be able to read the language on your letter. You can also include your address if you'd like. Keep in mind that they may not ever be able to send you anything back, but the opportunity is there. When we were in Senegal and we helped open up boxes, when I opened up a box and there was a letter there with an address, I actually took a picture of that address and the child, and I sent a letter to that person with the picture so they could see that their box actually was received by a child.
Now, if you write a letter to the child, you know, as a gift with a box as well, do you have to have it translated into their language?
You can. You could use Google and you could try to translate it as well. You don't necessarily have to. When we were there were local translators that were helping the children as well.
Now let's talk about the actual process, Esther. After we put the box together and it goes to like a central hub in Calgary, is it? Once we donate here in Lethbridge?
Yes.
And where does it go from there? Like, explain the whole process.
So the boxes here in Western Canada will go to Calgary for processing, whereas the boxes over on the eastern seaboard, they actually go to Ontario. So our boxes, they get collected, they get sent to the warehouse. The warehouse actually becomes basically a border security station and a customs agency. And they are checked to make sure there's no inappropriate items. Then they get packaged up and then into cartons and then sent in sea cans overseas.
So Calgary is a central hub for a lot of these boxes with Operation Christmas Child. And explain the process of where they go after they leave Calgary.
So the Calgary boxes, unless Ontario requires more boxes, typically will go to South America, where the Ontario boxes, they tend to go eastward, so towards Africa.
Okay, so if I wanted to maybe send a box to Senegal, do I have to send it to a relative out in Toronto? Or can I specifically say, hey, I want to send it to Sudan or somewhere else?
I don't actually know the answer to that one.
But I can request to send it to the Ukraine?
Yes.
Because Samaritan's Purse has a good relationship with the Ukraine?
Yes.
If I want to send it to Europe?
Exactly. If you want it to get to Ukraine, just write Ukraine on top of the box where you put your label, and then it will be sent to Ukraine.
Now this is all about Operation Christmas Child. But Esther, in reality, these boxes really don't make their way to the kids by Christmas, do they?
No, the shoe boxes tend to get there after Christmas. When I was in Senegal, we were actually distributing in June. So they may get it before the following Christmas, but please realize that it will take some time. They get packed into sea cans and get sent on ships. So it's all quite a timely process.
Now, I understand there's also a bit of a volunteer Bible study course that's made available for the kids and their families. Tell me a bit more about that.
Correct. One thing that I learned when I was in Senegal is that these boxes, where culturally appropriate, are actually a huge gospel opportunity. So the gospel and the story of Christ is actually shared before a distribution. After the distribution, children are invited to partake in a 12-lesson program where they can learn more about Christ. Quite often, families actually join the children for this program, and they graduate alongside the parents and graduate alongside the children.
Tell me about some of the delivery challenges that Operation Christmas Child experiences.
So yeah, again, if you go to at SamaritansPurse.ca, you'll see some of the ways that we transport our boxes. So there are some difficulties getting them overseas and getting them to their communities over there, but you'll see that they get transported by truck, by boat, including canoe, horse and wagon, which is what I saw in Senegal.
Mule or donkey maybe too?
That as well.
Right.
They get carried on elephants and even on the top of people's heads.
That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
Not at the top of a person's head, but with an elephant, right?
Yeah.
How about Greyhound shutting down here in Western Canada? Has that impacted anything with Samaritan's Purse and Operation Christmas Child?
No, we rely heavily again on volunteers, and so we have people bringing boxes from our local collection centers and bringing them up to the warehouse.
Now, for those people on busy schedules, you can now pack a shoebox online?
Yes. So new this year, packabox.ca allows you to pack your shoe boxes. You can do that online day or night, whenever you want, but also with that online packing now, you can actually track where your box is going. So you can see which country it ends up in.
And let's have a look at this box as well. Dressed it up in this beautiful color right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice little Christmas wrapping paper. So let's crack open this box inside,
Sure.
Esther. We've got a little penguin.
Yeah, so
Pelly the penguin here.
That's our wow item for this child. And sunglasses, I tend to put a few wow items if I can fit them in my boxes.
Can you put the sunglasses on the penguin? Will that
You
work
betcha.
too?
Yep.
That might work, right?
So,
Kinda like that.
and I did, trying to save space, I did pack our penguin around with some elastic bands. Some other items in here too. There's some clothing in this one.
And some soap,
Some
right?
soap, you betcha.
And little hair bands
Hair
and such as well.
elastics, yes.
Can you pack for a boy and a girl, or just specifically like one boy or one girl?
You can put, if you feel in your heart, you need to put both items, both gender items in your box. God has a way of working and getting that stuff to children, so you can, but we do request that you separate them out into boy and girl, and then with the 3 age categories.
Now, time is running out as well. National Collection Week is coming up when?
We're coming up right around the corner. It's November 12th to 18th.
And where can people in Lethbridge drop off their boxes?
So go to the website, and then you will see, if you type in your postal code, which collection center is closest to you. We have 3 here in Lethbridge. We have the B93 and Country 95.5. That's downtown in the RBC Tower there. We have the Evangelical Free Church, and we have Park Meadows Church. We also have some collection centers around us here. We have one in Tabor, one in Raymond, and then one in Fort Macleod as well.
So we've got a few moments left here. Esther, why don't you tell me about the personal rewards you get out of being involved with Operation Christmas Child?
Sure. I'm actually going to, if it's okay, I'll share with you a story of when I went to Senegal. I was praying for a miracle when I went to Senegal. You know, I was involved. I had been packing boxes for years, a few here and there, but it wasn't until that trip that it really sparked a fire in my heart. There was one distribution in particular. We went to a school, the group of 18 of us Canadians. We were divided up into separate rooms to hand out the boxes. When I got into that room, I looked at the carton of boxes that we had stacked up, and I looked at the children, and there wasn't enough boxes. There was too many children in that room. There was no way there was going to be enough. So as the gospel was getting presented to the children, I actually laid my hands on the cartons and I prayed for the miracle of multiplication. I said, Lord God, please let there be enough boxes. And so we started the distribution. It was actually another Esther from Ontario and I. We were in the room together and we started handing out boxes. We were handing out boxes to the boys. So as I handed them out, we actually ran out of boy boxes. So the boys had to go to the end of the line, and then we received the girls, and so we were handing out girl boxes. A girl came up holding a baby, and I told her in my broken French, I said, I'm sorry, we can't give you a box for your baby. Oh. And then the team leader came and said, no, it's not for her baby, it's for her. She was actually 15 years old.
Wow.
So it broke my heart. We had to send her to the back of the line behind the boys so that the boys could receive the remaining shoe boxes after we had handed out to all the girls.
Kids having babies, wow.
Exactly. So we were handing out boxes, and then Esther pulled a box out of the cart and said, Lord, bless this box. And I took it, and I said, Lord God, please let there be enough. I didn't look at the children behind me. I just gave one to each one, blessed each child individually, and then kept going down the line. As I pulled out the last box, the very last box, I turned around, and it was the 15-year-old mother.
Wow.
She got the very last box that was in that room. There was no children left, so God performed a miracle. There were enough boxes. So seeing that and some other miracles that I saw when I was in Senegal, I know the power of this ministry. It's great to give children gifts and to fill their lives and show them that they're loved, but there's more to it. God is working miracles with this. He's spreading his word. So that just lights a fire in me, and I want to continue to be a part of it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing this story. And Esther, Vonkum, and Rosette with Operation Christmas Child, thanks so much for joining us here in studio
Thank
today.
you again.
Access to pharmaceuticals is critical to have a properly functioning healthcare system. Does Canada need a national pharmacare program? Joining me now via Skype from Quebec is Yannick Labrie. He's a health economist and public policy consultant. He's also senior fellow at the Fraser Institute. Welcome to BCN, Yannick.
Nice to be there.
Now, the federal government is mulling over the concept of having a national pharmacare program. Question is it really necessary?
No, I don't think it's necessary. Actually, we do have a vast network of public programs across Canada, and we tend to forget about the benefits offered to vulnerable populations in Canada. For instance, all provinces cover pharmaceuticals for seniors across the country, for recipients of social assistance, so low-income Canadians are covered. And so I don't think we should get rid of that and implement a national pharmacare system. Absolutely not. It's not necessary.
You know, the perception seems to be that the majority of vulnerable Canadians do not have coverage for pharmaceuticals and have no way of paying for them. Is that actually true?
No, it's not. And it's, you know, it's useful to know what programs are available to those people, because some people are eligible, but they do not subscribe to public programs in their province, and it's a disservice to show publications or to present the problem like that, because we do have programs, specific programs in Canada devoted to those segment of the population. So I don't think we should think of the problem as if we have like 30% of the population not covered. It's simply not true.
Now, does every province in Canada provide coverage for lower income and vulnerable populations, or maybe a few provinces don't?
No, they do. All provinces do. It doesn't mean that people sometimes don't fall between the cracks, but all people, vulnerable populations are covered. If they're low-income Canadian, like I said, some provinces are more generous in their coverage. Quebec, for instance, probably is one of the most generous province in terms of coverage, but every province offers programs, that's for sure.
So how does Alberta compare with other provinces, including Quebec? Are we lagging behind, or are we ahead when it comes to coverage, especially for those who are most vulnerable?
I'd say Alberta is in the middle of the pack. Seniors are covered, obviously, people of low income, people with some disabilities as well. So we tend to think that people who are handicapped, or they have some rare diseases like multiple sclerosis, stuff like that, they are not covered. In Alberta, they are. It depends whether if they are eligible. It's probably a function of their revenue as well. So, but in Alberta, they're doing quite well if we compare with the rest of the country. Those provinces, there are actually two provinces where it's so far much more difficult. Newfoundland, for one, and probably Ontario, but they are improving.
So in your opinion then, Yannick, which province has the most generous coverage for families?
I'd say Quebec. Quebec has a good model. Quebec, what's interesting is it's a universal system. In Quebec, about 40% of the population is covered with government programs. You have maximum contribution from people covered, and the maximum is about 1,000 annually. You have co-insurance, and that's almost mandatory to have that contribution. It's about 35%, but everyone's covered, no one's left aside, and it's an interesting model.
How about which province has the most generous coverage when it comes to seniors? Would you say Quebec again?
Well, Quebec is one of them. Alberta's not doing that bad. BC has a good system, and Ontario for the seniors, people age 65 and over, they are quite well covered for pharmaceuticals. Yeah.
Now, so it seems like most provinces do have reasonably good coverage for low-income individuals and the wealthy able to cover a lot of things for themselves. Is it possible that if there are families falling between the cracks, it would be middle-income families who don't have a package with their employer?
Yeah, it would be. And according to the most reliable estimates, about 1.8% of the population do not have any coverage. So not with the employer, not with the public program. So I think we should, try to identify those people and try to target assistance to them. If we were to implement a national pharmacare plan from coast to coast, we would end up having less generous coverage for those who are actually currently covered by private insurance, and we would have less resources to devote to a specific person in need of coverage. But so far, they are absolutely, we should think about how to help those people which currently do not have coverage.
So if our country actually went ahead with a national universal government-funded pharmacare program, would this potentially cause employers to stop providing drug coverage through private firms because the government is now providing it?
Oh, yes. In all likelihood, they would stop covering medications, because what would be the point in covering the same kind of pharmaceuticals than the public programs? If we look at other developed countries, there's basically no market for private insurance in the pharmaceutical sector, except France, obviously except the United States, but many, if not most countries, they do not rely on private insurance, and it's understandable. And if we were to only give them a small niche of pharmaceuticals, it would not be profitable for them to cover those pharmaceuticals. So don't expect employers to cover cover pharmaceuticals if the program is nationally implemented by the federal government.
Now, most employer group coverage packages require a percentage of co-payment from the employee. Is it reasonable for those receiving government coverage to also be required to cost share as well?
Well, it depends. I'd say that, for low-income Canadians, if we were to have, cost-sharing arrangements that, discourage them to take prescriptions, in the end, they would end up in hospitals. It would be much more expensive collectively. But we have to have that kind of cost-sharing, because otherwise, expenditures would increase a lot, and it won't be sustainable. I think if we look at the current situation in Canada, even private insurance policies, insurance plans, you do have cost-sharing arrangements, and it's according to the preferences also of the employees, but also you need to have that kind of contribution from the person. Otherwise, you would probably end up with a lot of expenditures sky-rising.
Now, I understand that there are some medications not covered by the government. How much of a real issue is that for low-income families?
I'd say, not only for low-income families, for even seniors. What's the problem that we currently have? Public programs are much less generous than private plans, and it's problematic. I'll give you a sense of, the problem, the current problem that we have. The Quebec, like I mentioned, is the most generous plan in terms of, the number and the percentage of new drugs covered. In the last 10 years, among all the new drugs that were approved by Health Canada, only about 30% have been added to the list of drugs covered in Quebec. It's the most generous. If you compare that to private plans, almost immediately you will see the coverage of new medicines. So, in terms of equity, it's simply not equitable to have that kind of dual system. And if we were to have a national pharmacare plan, I'm afraid that we would end up having less access to new medicine. And that's the main worry that we should have.
So do you know how similar developed nations with the National Pharmacare Plan actually do this? And is co-payment maybe part of that package?
Yeah, co-payment for sure, co-insurance as well. If you look at the Scandinavian countries, about 50% of all pharmaceutical expenditures are covered out of pocket. Australia it's about the same percentage. If you take France, Germany, it's in between 16 and 20%, but those are the countries which are doing the best performance. But all countries, we should not expect to have the same kind of, coverage than other health services in Canada. If you go to the hospital, it's covered 100%. But pharmaceuticals, don't expect that to happen. In no country it works that way.
Now, Yannick, some people would argue if patients had to pay part of the cost, then it would maybe cause them not to even take their medicines that they need to have.
Yep. Of course, it's a problem that we currently have, but it's difficult to imagine not charging anything to have their prescription. I think you should have a limit to the amount that people should pay monthly and even annually. And you can lower charges as well, depending on your revenue. If you're on social assistance, I think maybe you should have access to medicine without having to co-pay or co-insurance. But otherwise, like I mentioned earlier, we would see expenditures increasing a lot, and it wouldn't be sustainable.
So what about dental coverage? Should the government maybe consider that as well?
Well, dental coverage, I'd say it's a little different. If we're talking about expensive treatments, of course, it should be covered, but covered by the government, I'm not sure. But so far, what we see is that we devote resources, public resources, to targeted groups, and I think it's the good strategy. If we were to cover everyone, some people just don't need to have that, and we would end up having less resources to devote to people who really need to have coverage.
So if Canada was to have a nationwide pharmacare program, Yannick, is it possible that there could be coverage issues that maybe come up because of the varying pharmaceutical needs from province to province?
Well, I think one of the objectives behind a national pharmacare program is to have universal access to medicine. But I think we should let provinces decide and tailor the program according to the specific needs of their population. Having a national pharmacare plan coast to coast implemented by the federal government, I think we would have less flexibility to come up with specific solutions to once again targeted problems. So I think we're better off with the current system that we have, and instead of a complete overhaul of the system, we should have targeted strategies and try to identify those people who currently fall between the cracks and target the assistance to those people.
Yannick Labrie, a health economist and public policy consultant, also senior fellow with the Fraser Institute. Thanks for joining me today from La Belle Province.
Thanks for having me.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and have a great night.